The alien turned pale as the human stepped inside, truth exposed. Captain Alara Miles walked steady, each step measured, as if she were pacing a shipyard instead of approaching the heart of a civilization she barely understood. Her uniform was simple, dark fabric, a thin braid of silver around the collar to mark her rank. It did not mean much here. The station's corridors were tall and wide, walls alive with faint patterns that pulsed and flowed like shallow rivers. The patterns changed when she passed, as if the station itself watched and then turned its attention elsewhere. She had been told to expect formalities. She had been warned about ritual and unsaid rules. Yet nothing in the briefings had prepared her for this corridor, for the hush that seemed to move ahead of her like a veil. The human delegation that had arrived with her melted into the background behind her, silent faces, careful steps. Alara kept her hands visible at her sides. She kept one short, steady breath between each thought. Diplomacy, she told herself, was two things: listening and patience. At the end of the wide corridor, the doors opened. The chamber beyond was not a room so much as a cathedral of glass and light. A circular floor spun like the face of a clock, embossed with circuits that glinted when the station's lighting shifted. Around its edge sat figures of many shapes, many colors, and many textures. They were the council, representatives of races that spanned the quadrant. Some had eyes like polished stones. Others had limbs that curled and braided, holding themselves with a slow, careful grace. They spoke in harmonies that the station translated into a low chorus the human ear could accept. Even in the translation, the sense of weight in their voices was clear. Age, history, rules older than any single species. High Chancellor Vrex sat at the center. He, or it, the humans would learn, was the same species that had first built the station. His skin was slate, with streaks of iridescent light that ran like veins. His face, if one could call those billowing folds a face, carried a crown of chitin that gleamed under the chamber lights. He watched the human party arrive not with curiosity but with calculation. Alara felt the room's attention pull like a net. Every eye found her. They expected show. They expected the human to bow, to quake, to plead. They had an image of humanity, brash, loud, full of passion but short on patience and precision. The old stories had painted humans as such, told to children as warnings or marvels depending on who told them. Alara had read those stories. She had seen them listed in diplomatic files as footnotes. Now she found herself face to face with the living echo of those tales. A translator console hummed in her ear. A prearranged greeting would do little. They wanted theater. Alara stepped forward into the open circle and raised her chin. She did not bow. She did not make a show. She smiled, small and honest, and extended a hand, not in a mockery of alien greeting but as any human would to another being they wished to meet. The gesture was simple. It was human. Some in the council tittered. Some did not. Vrex's hands folded. He let the moment hang as if savoring a slow dish. The translation in her ear rendered his voice like gravel and silk. "Captain Alara Miles of the Sol Accord," he said, "we welcome you to the Huron station. Speak. Show us why your presence is worthy of our time." Alara's reply was calm. "I am here to open channels," she said, "to learn, to seek understanding and a path where we do not have to fear each other." Her voice did not quake. It carried across the chamber without strain. The translators caught her words and wove them into the chorus. That chorus carried weight, but it also carried the small, human scatter of emotion. The council did not like emotion when it could be replaced by logic. They were a species that trusted artifacts, data, and recorded history more than quick smiles. Yet emotion had its place even among the most precise minds. It could disarm. It could reveal motive. Alara used it as a tool, not a weakness. The council's tests began as a dance of questions. They asked about treaties, about the human reliance on certain resources, about the form and reach of the Sol Accord. The questions were formal and sharp. They were designed to map not just knowledge, but strategy. Alara answered with facts and with more. She included small stories of what those facts meant for the people she represented. When an alien asked how humanity handled scarcity, she told of towns where people pooled their food and created community kitchens in winter. When another asked if humans feared war, she spoke of sailors who fixed ships in stormlight, singing while they worked. One of the younger delegates, a long-limbed being who kept curling its fingers like a fiddler practicing, watched her with surprise in its eyes. It leaned forward and a faint blue light traced along its arms. Alara noted these reactions and stored them like chips of information: curiosity, fascination, a hint of pity. She was not looking for sympathy. She was looking for truth. The thing in the room that did not fit the ritual was the hum. It was not the small whisper of the station's background systems. It thrummed through the floor under her boots like a distant heartbeat. It was subtle, a vibration that might be dismissed as architectural resonance if she did not notice it. But Alara had noticed it the moment she stepped into the chamber. Her training told her to catalog anomalies. She filed the sound away, tucked it into a corner of her mind for later. Vrex spoke again, softer now. He asked about the human fleet's readiness, about the Sol Accord's reach. Alara answered directly. She presented the truth she could without revealing intelligence sources or strategies. Her words were careful, measured, but honest. Honesty, she believed, made a good anchor in a room of long-dead lies. "You speak with confidence and with heart," Vrex intoned. "You humans are poetic in your way." Alara allowed herself a small, dry laugh. "We have to be," she said. "We have lived with more storms than most species will meet in a century." Another delegate, an old one with crested ridges across its head, clicked in a rhythm that the translation tool rendered as a questioning sound. "We have heard your tales," it said. "We have also heard that humans are prone to fear. That they build loud arsenals of heat and metal and threaten the quiet of space. Is this true?" Alara felt the room tighten. The question was not a test, it was an accusation. The Council had, for years, suspected human expansion could bring instability into a delicate balance they had kept. The human fleet was young, yes, but it had shown a tendency to respond with force when pushed. They saw this. They feared it. She could not deny the fear humanity felt when their worlds were threatened, but she could shape what that fear meant. "We fear," she said simply. "But we also learn. Fear does not mean we are reckless. It means we protect what we love. We will not seek war as a first step. We will stand to defend our homes if we must, but we will prefer dialogue. That is why I stand here today." Among the council some nodded. Among others, faces remained unreadable. It was then that a different voice rose. It was not Vrex's. It was not the chorus that owned the chamber. It was quieter, younger, and it pointed in a direction the council had not expected. "How does your species build defenses?" asked the blue-lit delegate, its voice weaving into the translation like a soft bell. "Not for war, but for survival." Alara expected talking of shields and drones, of armaments calibrated to respond. She had prepared answers for those, but when she opened her mouth, she spoke of something different. "We build systems that read intent," she said. "We design protocols that slow escalation. We make mistakes and we correct them. And we build networks of trust, small, stubborn communities that help carry each other through the dark. That is our defense as much as any ship." It was a small thing, a human truth, and it landed with surprising force. The long-limbed delegate shifted. Its light flickered. Vrex's compound eyes, which had been impassive, focused slightly. They were appraising. In a council where many things were decided by statute, small truths could still alter mood. That mood shift caught Alara's attention not because she had expected it, but because it let her see beyond the ritual. The council was a mask of formality, but behind the mask were alignments, old alliances that served practical ends. Some members had histories of trade. Some had histories of conflict. And in the room, in the soft hum beneath their feet, there was a different alignment, one made of cables, arrays, and something else she could not name. She let her eyes scan the chamber. The murals on the walls were not ornamental. They hid panels and conduits. A ripple of light ran beneath the floor, not random but patterned like a circuit board. The hum she had noticed grew clearer when she moved her head. It was not part of the station's ambient life. It was focused. It was being carried by something beneath the council itself. Alara did not speak of it. Not yet. She did, however, let her hands rest near the small device she kept on her belt. It was no weapon. It was a translator and sensor she had designed for personal diplomacy. It could tap into local broadcasts, pick up energy signatures, and overlay them in a simplified readout she could hold in the palm of her mind. To most diplomats, such tools were a breach of etiquette. To Alara, they were common sense. As the council deliberated, she flicked her thumb against the device. It pulsed faintly and sent a discrete stream of information to the implant behind her ear. Her brain remembered the signal as if it were a second language. Low frequency, patterned spikes, a precise modulation. There it was, an anomalous signature under the council floor. Not a weapon in the way a gun or missile might be a weapon, but a store, potential energy collected and held. Enough, the readout suggested, to power a directed effect of a kind she had not seen in recorded files. The council continued to speak, unaware that someone in their circle detected what lay beneath them. Alara kept her face neutral. Her training taught her that an open discovery could be a detonator. She let silence do its work. She made small, kind statements and kept the atmosphere light. When she laughed, the sound seemed to surprise some of the delegates. They were not used to hearing such laughter in the presence of hush. Vrex watched, his head tipped. There was a calculation behind the tilt, an inventory of motives. Alara could feel it. It was the kind of attention that could be read as respect, but also the kind that could be used to find weakness. Neither mattered yet. She needed information, not allies. The delegation's elder, a woman with a map of scars on her hands from many years, leaned forward and offered Alara a cup. The liquid inside glowed. "Drink," the elder said in translation. "Join our sharing." Alara declined gently. Cultural customs were meaningful but also loaded. "I will join you in talk," she said. "I will listen. I am grateful, but I am not of your drink." Her choice caused a ripple, no, not a ripple. It was a small earthquake in the terms of the room. Some saw it as defiance. Some saw it as respect toward her body, which could not accept foreign compounds without tests. No matter. The scene had distracted the council from the hum under their feet for a moment, and in that moment, a slender shadow moved across Vrex's eyes. Alara did not miss it. She noted the shadow, stored it. She watched him closely. His compound eyes narrowed once, twice. The motion was subtle, but to someone trained, it spoke of more than simple reflex. It spoke of a mind that felt something unexpected. The same device that had signaled the energy signature also tapped into local data and flashed a small alert only to her. Unauthorized local echo detected. The alert was not loud. It was a whisper in her ear only she could hear. Her face remained gentle. Her voice did not change. "We come bearing the hope that we can be part of the conversation," she said. "We are not perfect. We will make mistakes, but we will not quietly grow strong to become a threat. We will build trust." The room responded with their own measured answers. In the background, under the layered voices, the hum held steady. It beat like a distant drum. Somewhere below the chamber, metal and circuits slept and waited. The station had many such reservoirs, but their location in this chamber was curious. When the council rose to leave, the delegates slithered and shuffled away with their cloaks and appendages. Vrex remained for a moment and watched Alara with the cold, direct focus of an animal measuring prey. He inclined his head not in dismissal but in a slow, considered study. "You are a careful speaker," he said at last. Your kind surprises us. Alara inclined her head in return. We can surprise each other in good ways, she said. I hope we will. She turned to leave. The chamber lights followed her movement like attentive hands. The hum under the floor seemed to thicken and then thin, as if whatever slept below sensed motion above and altered its rhythm. Alara felt the hairs on the back of her neck lift, a human reflex from an age when danger was simple and immediate. She put that feeling in her pocket like a coin to count later. The corridor back to the airlock felt narrower. The delegation behind her exhaled in small noises of relief. They had survived the test, and for now that was enough. But Alara's mind did not rest. She had a name for the feeling that sat with her now, a sense of a hidden plan. She had a word for the slow, patient hum, stored potential. She had a memory of Vrex's eyes, a flicker that could be read as doubt or as fear. When the shuttle's ramp descended and the station's airlock sealed them in, Alara stood for a moment in the dim light of the craft. Her hand touched the sensor on her belt, and she pulled a small readout into her palm, the numbers quiet and strange. Enough energy to do unexpected things, the readout said. Enough, possibly, to force an advantage. Captain Alara Miles had expected the station to be imposing, but she had not expected the quiet weight of its secrets to press against her mind so heavily. The shuttle hummed under her feet, a low vibration that reminded her of the station's pulse, the hum she had noticed in the council chamber. She stared at the screens in front of her, blinking at the readouts and translations flowing into the small console on her lap. Her mind worked quickly, arranging the facts she had gathered, separating observations from assumptions, separating possibility from probability. Her crew had dispersed to different terminals, each of them absorbed in their tasks. Lieutenant Harrow, her communications officer, had already tapped into local traffic patterns, testing the limits of what could be observed without raising suspicion. Engineer Rena adjusted the shuttle's systems for long-term orbit, keeping sensors in place to record energy fluctuations from the station. Each crew member had a role, and Alara S. was to think, observe, and plan. "What are we missing?" she asked softly, more to herself than to anyone else. Her eyes scanned the readout again. The chamber had a signature below the floor. Not just a power source, something stored, controlled, maybe dangerous. Her finger traced the display, following the rhythm of the energy fluctuations. They were subtle, like breathing, pulsing slowly and steadily. Harrow leaned over her shoulder. "It's not consistent with normal station operations," he said. "Whatever it is, it's active, but it doesn't match anything in the databases. Not like a weapon, not like a shield, not even like the containment units we've seen before." Alara nodded. And the council acted as if it were invisible. Vrex especially. He reacted even though he tried to hide it. That tells me this isn't just a storage unit. This is deliberate. Someone wanted it hidden from everyone, including their own members. Rena, tightening a bolt on the shuttle's sensor array, glanced up. "We have a name for things like that, Captain. Secrets." "Yes," Alara said, "and secrets that can shift power." She leaned back, rubbing her temples. Her mind worked through the council's hierarchy, through the alliances, and through the history she had studied on the trip. The Huron station was not merely a neutral meeting place. It was a hub. The station had resources, technology, and intelligence that could affect dozens of systems. Its design was brilliant, its layout deceptive, and the council believed no human could comprehend it fully. Alara's pulse quickened. That assumption could be dangerous for them, or useful. She had learned one truth already: humans were underestimated, and in that underestimation, opportunity existed. The next morning, she requested another audience with Vrex. The shuttle's docking bay was quiet, empty of the usual traffic, and the crew followed protocols with efficient silence. When she entered the chamber, the council had changed its arrangement. They were more formal, more imposing in their seating. Some delegates had shifted, whispering among themselves in their own harmonics. The humans' arrival did not startle them now. They had seen them before, but the air was tense, as if the previous meeting had left a ripple that had yet to settle. Vrex's eyes, so unlike anything human, layered and compound, focused on her as she approached the center. The subtle flicker of light along his skin suggested thought, calculation, and perhaps something else. Surprise, discomfort. Alara was not sure yet. But she knew she had created a small disturbance in their assumptions. That was enough for now. "Captain Miles," Vrex said, voice even, smooth as polished stone. "We did not expect you to request another audience so soon." "I have questions that cannot wait," Alara replied. Her voice was calm but firm, each syllable chosen. Questions about the station and its resources, and about the intentions of the Council regarding the larger quadrant. The chamber shifted. Members leaned forward, exchanged faint clicks and vibrations. Some whispered. The translation system worked to smooth the sounds into something comprehensible, but the underlying tone of tension remained. Vrex inclined his head. "Questions are acceptable, though you understand the limits imposed by law and custom." "I do," she said. "But I need clarity." She walked slowly, deliberately. Each step allowed her to observe reactions, to note subtle movements, to map relationships. The Council believed themselves untouchable, their control complete. They had never faced a human capable of reading a room as a human did. "Explain your concern," Vrex said. "The chamber we entered yesterday," she began, careful. "I detected a pattern in the energy beneath the floor. It is controlled, deliberate, and unusual. I would like to understand its purpose." A ripple ran through the Council. Some tilted their heads. Others, lights flickered nervously. Vrex's skin darkened slightly in a pattern that suggested caution. He did not deny her observation, which was telling. "That is an operational system," he said finally. "It is part of the station's infrastructure, nothing more." Alara raised an eyebrow, allowing a slight pause before she spoke again. It seemed more than infrastructure. The fluctuations were not constant. They pulsed, and the pattern repeated in a way that suggested monitoring or containment. If it is only infrastructure, why would it respond differently at different times? The room held silence. A human might have expected rebuke, but Vrex only leaned slightly forward. "Observation," he said. "Some systems respond to environmental variables, that is all." Alara considered this. "Then let us test that," she said. "Perhaps I could observe further under your guidance. I can provide feedback to improve efficiency." It would be beneficial to the Council to have an independent assessment. Some delegates murmured among themselves. The tone was cautious but curious. Vrex studied her, calculating, and then inclined his head once. "Very well, you may observe. But you must follow Council protocols precisely. Any deviation is unacceptable." Alara allowed herself a small, controlled smile. The first step was granted. Observation was her tool. Information was her advantage. She moved to the edge of the chamber where the sensors were unobtrusive, setting her device to tap into energy patterns without triggering alarms. Hours passed. Alara watched the system, noting the rhythm, noting the subtle shifts. The energy pulsed in relation to Council activity, but also independently. She recorded anomalies, made hypotheses, and cross-referenced them with historical data she had memorized from previous missions. The station's design was brilliant. Every movement of the Council, every word spoken, every translation pulse was integrated into the patterns of the system. It was a living network, responsive and protective. By mid-cycle, she discovered what she had suspected. The system beneath the Council was more than a monitor. It was capable of generating energy directed precisely. The scale was unclear, but the potential was enormous. If activated, it could affect the station or vessels in orbit. That potential was not publicly acknowledged, hidden beneath layers of Council secrecy and protocol. Alara documented everything. She made sketches of the pulse, measured timings, and noted correlations between council actions and system responses. She could not yet touch it, could not yet reveal her knowledge. Discovery was the first victory. Revelation would come later. Later, during a session where council members discussed minor resource allocations, Vrex approached her directly. "Captain Miles," he said, his voice neutral, "you have shown persistence. You observe carefully, but do you not tire of endless questions?" "I tire only if the truth is obscured," she replied. Her words were calm but precise. "Observation is part of understanding. Understanding is necessary for trust." Vrex's response was a slight pause, his gaze narrowing. "Trust is earned, Captain, not demanded." "And yet," she said softly, "some truths cannot wait for trust to be earned. They must be known to prevent catastrophe." His skin flickered in an odd rhythm. For a moment, it seemed he recognized something she did not say aloud. He leaned back, adjusting the angle of his head. He allowed the session to continue, but the subtle tension in the room shifted. Delegates whispered, small gestures of concern exchanged silently. Alara noted each detail: who leaned, who avoided eye contact, whose lights flickered at unusual rates. That evening, back in the shuttle, she reviewed her notes with Harrow and Rena. The implications of the energy pattern were staggering. If the system were intended as a weapon, the potential for destruction was enormous. But if it were a defensive mechanism, it was still capable of harm if misused. "We need to know intent," she said, her tone steady. "And to know intent, we need evidence beyond observation. We need a way to map the control nodes, see who has access." Harrow nodded. "I can try to intercept signals. If there are control commands moving through the network, we can trace them to a source." Rena added, "And I can adjust the sensors so we're not detected. The station systems are advanced, but they are not flawless. We have a chance." Alara leaned back, considering. The plan was risky. Direct intrusion would be dangerous. Detection could lead to diplomatic fallout or worse. But if they waited too long, the station could act first. She had to balance caution with initiative. "Then we move carefully," she said. "We observe, we record, and we probe, but invisibly. The moment we are discovered, we stop. Survival comes first, discovery comes second, and knowledge comes last, but it will be our greatest weapon." The crew nodded. The shuttle's hum matched her own heartbeat. She felt the thrill of the challenge, the certainty that humans had something the aliens underestimated: patience, ingenuity, and the ability to turn observation into strategy. The next day, the crew executed their plan. While the council held its public session, Harrow intercepted sublayer signals, decoding encrypted transmissions. Rena monitored the energy flows, mapping nodes and paths without triggering alarms. Alara watched, calculating, and noting the reactions of the council members above them. Every slight gesture, every flicker of light, every subtle shift in posture became a data point. By the session's end, Alara had enough evidence to form preliminary conclusions. The system beneath the council chamber was not merely defensive. Its energy output, distribution, and timing suggested it was designed for controlled precision strikes. The intent remained ambiguous. Was it deterrent, weapon, or something else? She did not yet know. But the existence of deliberate concealment was clear. Alara allowed herself a small, measured smile. She had played the first part of the game correctly. The council had underestimated her persistence. They had underestimated human ingenuity. And they had underestimated the value of patience and careful observation. In the quiet of the shuttle's observation deck, she recorded her thoughts: the energy system, the council's reactions, and the subtle shift in Vrex's focus. Each detail added a layer to the story. Each observation brought her closer to uncovering not just the station's secrets, but the council's intentions. And in that knowledge lay the power to change the game entirely. She looked out the viewport at the distant stars. Each one seemed sharper, more defined than usual. It was a reminder. Humans were small, yes, but clarity and courage could make them giants in a galaxy of giants. The Council had already noticed. They did not yet know the extent of what a single human could accomplish. And Alara Miles intended to show them. Captain Alara Miles felt the weight of the shuttle's hull beneath her feet, yet the pressing weight of the station above and around her was heavier. Every detail she had gathered, every subtle flicker of the Council members' expressions, every pulse of the energy beneath the chamber floor, coalesced into a single, urgent thought. They had to know the truth before it was too late. The station, with its elegant corridors and complex hum of power, was not neutral. It concealed something dangerous, something deliberate, and the Council's careful silence meant someone had a plan that did not include humanity, or perhaps any other species not under their direct influence. The crew gathered around the console, eyes sharp and attentive. Harrow ran a series of diagnostic scans, mapping the energy network she had previously detected, while Rena adjusted the sensor array to optimize for sublier frequency monitoring. Alara stood over them, her mind shifting through hypotheses, probabilities, and risks. The more she observed, the clearer the pattern became. The system beneath the Council chamber could not merely be defensive. It was designed to act on command, targeting precise points in space, and its potential reach was staggering. "We need to trace control signals to their source," Alara said, her voice steady but commanding. "If the Council is sending directives through this network, I want to know who can activate it and when." Harrow's fingers flew over the console. "I've intercepted fragments of signals. They're heavily encrypted, but I can isolate node activity. The main controller appears to be mobile, likely in the chamber itself." Alara's eyes narrowed. That confirmed her suspicion. The power beneath the Council chamber was not autonomous. It required human, or rather, alien, intervention to function. That meant the Council members were not merely stewards of this system. They were potential operators of it. And one of them, likely Vrex, was its ultimate controller. "We'll need access without detection," she said. "If they realize we are tracking this, it could trigger defensive protocols. That could compromise the station, or worse, make the Council suspicious of our intentions before we have proof." Rena adjusted the sensors. "We can monitor node interactions indirectly. I can feed the energy readings into a simulation that predicts activation patterns. That way we'll know what they're planning without touching the system directly." Alara nodded. "Do it, and keep it quiet. Not a flicker or pulse can give us away." Hours passed in tense concentration. The shuttle hummed faintly, a steady companion to their work, while the crew tracked every fluctuation, every subtle modulation of the energy system. Outside, the Council's session continued. Delegates argued about trade, resource allocation, and procedural details, but beneath the surface, subtle shifts in the system's hum betrayed a different conversation, a hidden one, encrypted in the rhythm of energy and the pulse of authority. Alara watched Vrex carefully. The High Chancellor moved with deliberate precision, his compound eyes flicking across the chamber, noting patterns, adjusting posture. Each motion, each gesture, corresponded to a shift in the energy beneath the floor. The pulse quickened when he spoke certain words, slowed when he observed silence. It was a dance of control, invisible to all but the most observant. "I've got it," Harrow said suddenly, breaking the tension. "I can predict the energy fluctuations based on Council member activity. Vrex is the primary controller. The system responds to his commands and the nodes can target precise locations." Alara felt a chill, not of fear but of understanding. "Do we know the range?" she asked. Harrow nodded, his eyes scanning the console. "Potentially across the entire sector if fully activated. The energy is stored and channeled in a way that multiplies its output. One node could affect multiple stations, ships, or planets." Rena's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "If this is weaponized, it's not just defense. It's a strike tool." Alara's mind raced. She had anticipated discovery of energy patterns, but not necessarily their destructive potential. The implications were staggering. The Council could decide at any moment to use the system as leverage, or worse, to execute a preemptive strike on perceived threats. Humanity's presence in the quadrant could be vulnerable, the Sol Accord's allies at risk, and the trust she had sought to build could crumble in an instant. "Then we need evidence," she said, her tone sharp. "Concrete proof of intent. Observation alone is not enough. We need to know if the Council intends to use it offensively or if it truly is defensive." Harrow tapped the console rapidly. "I can monitor communication channels for direct activation commands. If someone triggers the system, we'll see the sequence. If it's just idle, the pattern will remain passive." Alara paced. "Good, keep it quiet. We cannot afford detection, and if we find evidence we will have to act, carefully, decisively, but without hesitation." The session continued and the Council's arguments grew more heated. Delegates disputed trade agreements, but Alara's attention never wavered. Every subtle movement, every modulation in the station's hum, every flicker in the alien skin patterns became data. She noted which delegates influenced the energy system unintentionally through body language and which moved deliberately. It was like reading a hidden language, one of authority and power. As the session drew toward its peak, a subtle shift in the energy patterns alerted Alara. The hum beneath the floor had accelerated slightly, synchronized with Vrex's gestures. She adjusted her sensors, isolating the node sequences. The readings confirmed her suspicion. Vrex was preparing the system for potential activation. "They're testing it," she whispered to herself, "or preparing to show force." Harrow's fingers froze above the console. "We're seeing activation sequences but no target specified. He's running a diagnostic or preparing an option." Alara leaned forward. "Keep watching. We need full clarity. Every movement, every command, every pulse." Minutes stretched, tense and unbroken. The Council debated endlessly, but the energy system was the silent heartbeat beneath the chamber, its potential terrifying and unseen. Then a faint signal flickered through the sensor array. Harrow isolated it, confirming what they had feared. The system could be activated remotely, capable of focused energy bursts that could destroy vessels or structures in precise locations. "It's a weapon," Alara said softly, voice calm despite the storm in her mind. "And it's ready if they choose." Rena's hands tightened on the console. "What now?" Alara considered the Council. She had no proof of intent, only the potential. But in the Council's own operations, in Vrex's gestures and timing, she could infer purpose. The system was designed to control, to intimidate, to enforce. Its concealment was deliberate. They could strike at will. "We need more," she said. "Evidence beyond energy patterns. Communication, directives, internal Council data, something they cannot deny." Harrow's eyes lit up. "We might get lucky. A subroutine in the system logs activity. If we access the node histories, we can see who activated what and when." "Do it quietly," Alara said. "We cannot alert them. If they detect intrusion, we lose the advantage and they might use the system." Hours passed as they monitored, traced, and logged. Finally, a clear sequence emerged. Vrex had ordered a test activation, not aimed at any real target, but sufficient to demonstrate operational capacity. The pattern repeated, logged, and hidden in the system's architecture. It was proof, indirect but undeniable, that the Council possessed a functioning weapon capable of offensive power. Alara's heart raced with both caution and determination. They had the evidence. Now came the delicate task, exposing it without provoking immediate conflict. She summoned the crew. "We have confirmation," she said. "Vrex controls the system. It is capable of destruction. We cannot confront him directly yet, but we can expose the intent. That is the next step." Harrow leaned back, nodding. "We can create a simulation, show the Council's capabilities without activating the system. It will be a visual, undeniable proof of potential consequences. Alara smiled faintly. Good. Make it convincing, precise. The Council cannot claim it's speculation. It must be observable and indisputable. Rena added, we should also map potential failures, weak points. If we need leverage or negotiation, understanding vulnerabilities is key. Alara agreed. Knowledge is power, but clarity is safety. We need both. Over the next cycle, they prepared. Simulations ran, patterns analyzed, node interactions mapped. Every detail of the Council's hidden system was captured. The shuttle became a silent command center, pulsing with quiet energy as the crew worked tirelessly. When the time came to act, Alara did not hesitate. She requested another audience with Vrex, citing procedural review and observation notes. The Council agreed, curious about her insistence. As she entered the chamber, she felt the familiar weight of alien scrutiny, the calculated glances, the subtle shifts of light across chitin and skin. Vrex watched her, and for the first time she noticed hesitation in his compound gaze. Something he had assumed invisible had been observed. Alara stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. High Chancellor, delegates, I have observed the energy system beneath this chamber. It is capable of precise, directed action. That is not infrastructure alone. That is a weapon, concealed and controlled by the Council. The room held breathless silence. Delegates shifted, some signaling in their own harmonics. Vrex's skin darkened slightly, a reaction unmistakable to those who knew to read it. He had not expected exposure. The human before him had seen what they had hidden. I present evidence, Alara continued. Logs, simulations, and patterns confirm control and operational readiness. This is not speculation. It is observable fact. Concealment of this system's capability threatens the trust and stability of every species in this sector. Whispers rippled through the chamber. Vrex's composure faltered. For the first time, he was visibly unsettled, the light along his chitin skin flickering irregularly. Humanity's reputation as timid or naive had not prepared the Council for direct, undeniable observation combined with clear, reasoned exposition. Alara allowed a moment of silence, letting the weight of her words settle. She did not raise her voice, did not gesture unnecessarily. The evidence spoke for itself. In that silence, the Council's reaction confirmed her intuition. They feared exposure, feared accountability, feared the consequences of underestimating a human's capacity to understand and reveal the truth. Finally, Vrex inclined his head slightly, the motion hesitant, calculated, yet unmistakable. The room exhaled in tension, but Alara remained steady. She had achieved the first victory. The truth was seen. The Council's secret could no longer remain hidden. And in that revelation, humanity's strength, its courage, clarity, and persistence, shone unmistakably in the eyes of those who had underestimated them. Captain Alara Miles stood in the Council chamber, the calm of her posture belying the tension in the air. The Council members whispered among themselves, their harmonics low and anxious, while Vrex, the High Chancellor, remained at the center, his skin flickering in irregular patterns, betraying the unease he could not openly show. The human diplomat had accomplished what she had intended. She had revealed the truth of the energy system beneath their feet. But revelation alone was only the beginning. Now, she had to ensure that humanity's interests were respected, that the threat was neutralized, and that the Council recognized that underestimation of humans was a mistake that could never be repeated. Alara took a measured breath, allowing her gaze to sweep the room. Each Council member had eyes, or equivalents, that reflected emotion and thought in ways subtle and complex. Some were angry, some confused, and others were curious, the light in their bodies pulsing with varying intensity. She had anticipated this mixture. In diplomacy, emotion was as much a tool as logic. She allowed the moment to stretch, to give weight to the undeniable truth she had presented. Vrex cleared his throat, the sound echoing slightly in the high chamber. "Captain Miles," he said, voice steady but with a note of unease, "you have presented observations that we cannot ignore. The Council recognizes the capabilities of this system." Alara inclined her head. "It is not the capabilities alone that are concerning," she said. "It is the concealment, the lack of transparency, and the potential for unilateral action. The system's existence is known, but its operational intent has been hidden. That secrecy endangers every species that relies on stability in this sector." A ripple of murmured agreements and low harmonics swept the chamber. Delegates whispered to one another, casting glances at Vrex. The High Chancellor's skin darkened, a subtle sign of tension or perhaps contemplation. He had built this council, this station, and this energy system over decades. Yet here stood a human, not with force but with observation, logic, and undeniable evidence, exposing a flaw in his control. Alara continued, choosing her words carefully. "Humanity seeks peace and dialogue, not dominance. We are not here to dismantle your station or challenge your authority without reason. But we must insist that systems capable of offensive action be subject to oversight, transparency, and, if necessary, disarmament. Trust must be earned, and secrets that could harm multiple species undermine trust." Some council members nodded. Others leaned closer, signaling to one another in quiet tonal pulses. The chamber's usual air of formal distance had shifted. For the first time, the human's presence was felt not as an anomaly, not as a curiosity, but as an influence. Vrex's compound eyes fixed on Alara, calculating. "You present a strong case," he said. "Yet the system was intended for deterrence, not aggression. Our intent is defensive. You must understand this." Alara allowed a small, measured pause. "Intent cannot be assumed by concealment," she said. "Even defensive systems can be misused or misinterpreted. By hiding its operational readiness, the Council risks escalation rather than preventing it." The tension in the room grew. Delegates' lights flickered in patterns of debate, disagreement, and anxiety. Some whispered questions to one another. Others observed in silence. The proof Alara had brought, simulation data, node activity, energy mapping, was irrefutable. The Council could dispute the morality, they could explain the purpose, but the facts themselves were beyond argument. Alara stepped closer to the center, her voice firm but calm. "We propose oversight, neutral observation, shared knowledge. Humans can assist, if permitted, in monitoring and ensuring the system cannot be used unilaterally. Transparency protects everyone. Secrecy endangers everyone." The room fell into near silence. Vrex's compound eyes, layered and sharp, regarded her closely. There was a pause long enough to feel tense in the still air. Then finally he spoke. "Your words are reasonable, Captain Miles, and yet this is a challenge to tradition. The Council has operated under its own guidance for centuries. To accept oversight is unprecedented." Alara nodded slowly. "Sometimes the future requires unprecedented steps. Humanity has survived countless storms by seeking cooperation, by learning from others, and by standing firm when necessary. This is no different. Your system is powerful, yes, but power without accountability invites risk. Cooperation ensures stability. It preserves the station and the Council, and it prevents mistakes that none of us can afford." Another delegate, a long-limbed being with eyes like polished crystal, shifted forward, its lights pulsing in rapid succession. "She speaks the truth," it said, voice translating softly into harmonics. "If the system is as described, secrecy endangers many, transparency benefits all." Whispers and murmurs spread across the chamber. Other delegates leaned closer to Vrex, their own opinions forming in response to the undeniable evidence and the clarity of the human diplomat's argument. The atmosphere had shifted from suspicion to contemplation. For the first time, the Council members were considering the implications not only of the system but of the human presence before them. Vrex remained still, his skin flickering in small, tense patterns. Then slowly he inclined his head. "Very well," he said. "We will allow observation. We will implement oversight protocols. Humans may participate, though only as advisors. The Council retains final authority." Ilara allowed herself a small, controlled smile. The agreement was not complete, nor was it total victory, but it was progress. Humanity had forced recognition of its capability, intellect, and judgment. They had proven that observation, reason, and patience could achieve results that force could not. "We accept," she said, "with the understanding that oversight ensures the safety of all, not just humanity. We will work together in the spirit of trust." Delegates murmured approval. The long-limbed being gave a subtle bow, and others followed. The Council's attention turned back to procedural matters, but the subtle power shift was clear. The human presence was no longer a curiosity. It was a factor, a force to be reckoned with. In the following cycles, Ilara and her crew began their work as overseers. The shuttle's sensors monitored the system continuously, while Harrow traced commands, verified energy flows, and ensured that all activity matched declared intent. Rena's adjustments allowed them to record without interference, building a transparent log of activity. Vrex, initially cautious, began to cooperate, though his confidence remained guarded. He had underestimated humanity, and the lesson had been humbling. Yet in that same underestimation, he saw potential. A human diplomat could not only expose flaws, but also offer solutions, strategies, and oversight that strengthened the station's credibility and authority. Ilara observed all of this with careful attention. The station was no longer simply a place of hidden power. It had become a platform for cooperation, negotiation, and mutual respect. She had proven that humans could understand, navigate, and influence systems far beyond what other species assumed. In this, she saw the essence of humanity's strength: courage, clarity, intellect, and the ability to act decisively when the stakes were highest. Weeks passed, and the Council adjusted to the new oversight. The station's operations became more transparent. Delegates began consulting Ilara and her crew for advice on protocols, energy management, and conflict prevention. The system beneath the chamber remained operational, but could now be verified by neutral observers. Humanity's presence ensured accountability. Vrex, once distant and wary, gradually treated Ilara with measured respect. The flickers of hesitation in his skin became less frequent, replaced with signs of consideration. He had been forced to acknowledge that humans were not naive, weak, or insignificant. They were capable, perceptive, and determined. Ilara knew the Council would not forget this. The truth had been revealed, the threat neutralized, and the balance of power subtly shifted. Humanity's reputation had grown, not through displays of force, but through intelligence, observation, and moral clarity. One evening, as the shuttle rested in orbit above the station, Ilara stood at the viewport, looking at the stars. The vastness of space stretched endlessly before her, dotted with lights from distant systems. She felt a deep sense of accomplishment, tempered with awareness of the challenges yet to come. Humanity had gained respect, yes, but it had also gained responsibility. The galaxy would watch, and humans would have to live up to the trust they had earned. Rena came to stand beside her. "You did well," she said simply. "The Council listens now because they know we can see and understand. That's more than most species ever achieve." Ilara nodded. "It's not just about us. It's about setting a precedent. If one human can do this, then the Sol Accord can influence future decisions, prevent hidden threats, and maintain stability. We have to be vigilant, thoughtful, and ready." Harrow joined them, leaning on the rail. "And yet for all that, they respect us. They know we are not naive, and they know we are not reckless. That's the strength." Ilara smiled faintly, letting the quiet sense of triumph settle. "Yes, humanity's strength is often underestimated, but clarity and courage reveal it." and once revealed, it changes everything. Below them, the station continued its hum, steady and orderly. The council chamber, once a place of hidden power and potential threat, now operated under the light of transparency and shared responsibility. Humanity had not conquered through force. They had conquered through understanding, observation, and moral clarity. The stars outside seemed to shine more brightly, not because the galaxy had changed, but because humans had proven that they could meet even the most advanced challenges with intellect, courage, and patience. Alara knew that this was only one battle in an ongoing journey, but it was a victory worth remembering. And in that victory, she allowed herself a quiet thought. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. Never again would they make that mistake. The human diplomat turned from the viewport, her eyes sharp, her mind alert, and her heart steady. There were still challenges ahead, but the truth had been exposed, the threat neutralized, and the galaxy had learned to respect the resourcefulness, courage, and determination of humanity. In the quiet glow of the station, she felt the weight of responsibility and the satisfaction of a job well done. Humanity had triumphed, not with weapons, not with anger, but with clarity, intelligence, and unyielding courage. And that, Alara thought, was a strength the galaxy could never ignore. The alien turned pale as the human stepped inside, truth exposed.